Well, it's Renegade, and it's time to spill more reality as we discuss yet another episode of Survivor 46. As tonight brings the end to some dramatic storylines while setting up some new threads for us to follow. And tonight, as well as every night, I'll be joined by a member of our community draft team where we'll kiki about all the drama. And we've got a fun one tonight, y'all. Despite me calling this guy a king of controversy for all of his hot takes, one of my most favorite post show activities is to randomly bicker back and forth with him, because it usually leads to some enlightening conversation or at the very least, some fun drama. But tonight, he's joining me to do it all live for y'all. Forever a Bridesmaid, it's the runner-up of Renegade's Drag Race Season 2, QuackrrJack. Jack, how you doing tonight?
Hey, I'm doing great. I can't believe you thought I was dramatic. That's crazy.
Imagine you. Drama? Not you. Could
Hot
be
takes or just the correct opinions? I don't know. You decide.
you. Controversial, if you were a drag queen, would be your name for sure. How are you
Maybe a
feeling
little
about
bit.
that season tonight, though, Jack? Speaking about controversial, about what is going on with this season, kind of in general.
Actually, this season's been kind of fun because there's just been so many outbursts of like random bad play versus good play and just like a whole lot of mess, and it's only a couple episodes in so far.
Mess feels like the accurate term to describe this season. Like, I don't think when the season ends, it's going to be remembered at all for any of its strategic prowess. But I think we have a lot of fun moments here that will definitely be something that we'll be talking about for a long time to come. And before we get into a lot of that here, though, let's give the viewers a little history about your viewership with the show here. So let's start at the beginning here. When did you start watching the show, and what keeps you coming back?
So I started watching this show actually when I was in high school, and I was like a Boy Scout because my Scoutmasters like they would watch it, and I wasn't really like in tune with it at that point where I was watching every week or anything. But as time went on, and I started to watch more reality TV as I grew up a little bit. I started going for like all the shows. I first started on like all the dating drama shows, and then I made my way over from like that to the challenge, and I eventually found myself always watching Big Brother, and that led to Survivor. And then, from there, I was hooked because I just wanted to know. I was like, I need to know how these people act. I want to judge them. Like, I love to be a messy bitch as well who loves to judge people. And, I love messy drama. So, like, that really keeps me going. But also, some of the shit that pisses me off is like their decision making, and I'm always like, you're like yelling at the TV screen, like, why would you do that? So
I
like
feel
that's
like
what
you're
keeps me
probably yelling a
going.
lot this season, right?
I mean, for the most part, I mean, I'm pretty vocal when it comes to how I feel or think. So that's like generally how I'm feeling, and most of the time we're on the same page, except a couple, here or there. But I mean,
I
this season,
mean, we could talk about Plain Jane a little bit later. We could save that for some season 16.
oh, that's a different show. Hold on,
That's that's some different drama, right?
right?
We'll take us back to Survivor here. What would be your favorite season here, and who do you think is your favorite castaway?
Okay, so this is a really hard question because there's like different parameters for each like reason why you find someone to be like one of your faves. But definitely my faves of all time is like a tie between Sari and Sandra. Like there's it's hard to explain because you're really looking at like a style of play that isn't just this, oh, I win the challenges and beat people's ass. It's really about like that social game, and it gets back to the whole focus of this is a social game, and how you pursue and move on in it. It has to do a lot with just your social ties. And I think like maybe Sandra just wins up slightly because of her being like so aware of just having to make it to the next vote. And as long as we vote someone out and it ain't me, that's all I care about. But like, I can't not give Sari feels like the props she most definitely deserves.
I mean,
As
those
far
are
as
two
season,
queens.
right, right. I mean, like, you can't not like them. Like, I mean, I don't want to say that every Survivor pick is correct to be your fave because that's just not true at all. Some of people's faves are crazy and stupid, but like, when I see good gameplay like that, I'm like, oh yeah, these people came to play the game. As far as like my favorite season, that's really difficult because there's so many good like specific seasons. Like I'll never forget. Like China is one of my favorite seasons. Like strategic gameplay wise, though I don't think that that would work now in New Age Survivor. And if you split those two like old Survivor to new Survivor, that's like really hard to explain. But I definitely am more fond of the older Survivor, so I'm gonna go with China.
I don't think you could. I don't think you necessarily have to split it up. 'Cause, I mean, it's all if you look at it from day one to where we're at now, it's all an evolution of kind of like where it
That's
started
true.
and where you got to today. And for me, I think that's what one of the most exciting aspects of the show is just seeing how things just started, even just within like the first like 4 seasons. You go from having a super strong voting block to having like to the point where you have like inner alliances within other alliances, and then you have like season 4 where you get the first final like vote flip. Like there's just an evolution from the start to the beginning. So I don't think there's any wrong answer for having a favorite season or where it lies or trying to compare it to the strategy from where it's at now, because to some degree it all has a basis of where it falls back on to in the beginning. So I do agree too. I personally think the older seasons pre maybe season 20 are probably a little bit stronger. I'll have to redo my season ranking here, but I don't know, other than maybe Kagion, if I have anything post heroes versus villains like super, super, super high. Um, but we'll kind of see where 46 is going. I'll be honest, I'm not sure how I feel where this season could be heading, because it's feels like it's very questionable of where things are kind of going here. And kind of just to start off with a question mark where we kind of were leaving off from last episode with the Randon Medivac here. And what were your thoughts kind of on this? Because I know you had him in our community draft poll here, unfortunately. So sadly, you were sabotaged by God last week in order to keep Banu for
Yeah.
one more day. What are your thoughts about the whole Randon situation and how that kind of just suddenly went down?
So clearly, Banu sabotaged Ranon with his prayers to God for like a 14th save in the same episode, which I guess happens. It's fine. Randon going is really sad because I really compared him to a player like Jesse, and I really, really was excited for that because I was like, I think that Randon could have been an amazing player, and I think he was. We had seen him have a couple conversations, and we weren't really sure where it was going to go yet because he had that issue with Venus, but then all of a sudden now he's Venus's like number one kind of way, and so it was a very interesting relationship dynamic they had there. And so I'm not really sure how it's going to necessarily affect the game, but clearly it seems like it gave Kenzie a lifeline that she didn't know she needed. And I'm not sure how that's going to work out because now we're seeing like a complete different change in the game because no one went home last time.
Mm-hmm. And I think we actually do find out right at the beginning here as well that Q kind of lets it spill that he was kind of leaning towards Kenzie. Kenzie was actually saved by this whole situation, thinking that Banu actually was going to make it through this last tribal council, more than likely. But it looks like as soon as everything happens here, um, he immediately tells Q and Tiffany that he revealed all the information that he did to Ben and Liz at the last visit, and they're immediately done with him. And it's just like, Banu, again. Like, you were literally got everything that you needed. And just like Kenzie called him the toddler who touches the oven after you tell him not to, he literally spills everything again. What are your thoughts here as we kind of learn all the situation that it was actually Kenzie and Banu basically just threw himself in the fire line again?
So once again, Banu is really proving that he has zero game sense at all. For someone who claims to be a super fan of the show, it's really interesting to me to see him crack under the pressure so easily, to see him make all these mistakes, to tell everything, and to watch Kenzie make this comparison to him as a toddler. It really does kind of paint the picture properly there because it doesn't matter what you tell him or like what you want from him, even though Q was trying to like make him his number one and like keep him good. It didn't seem to really work in anyone's favor, and in fact it might have ended up like biting him in the ass overall. And I honestly think both Q, Kenzie, and maybe somewhat Tiffany are all like completely screwed out of really getting too far in the game. But I do think if there's anyone who could bring it back, it probably is Tiffany, if she can convince people that she's not that close with Q and willing to like kind of vote him out of these three at least.
I'd hope to think that they'd have, a better shot outside of this. I don't think they're completely tanked outside of what Banu has done here. We can get to that maybe a little bit later, discussion wise, when we get to some additional things later in the episode that we kind of learn. But at this point, it definitely seems like any sort of momentum for Banu here has kind of failed, and it's kind of sad to see because you're right. He is saying he's a super fan, but we're not seeing any sort of super fandom from him at all whatsoever. This is just unfortunate at all. Um, we do kind of like have a short scene just to kind of flip back to Nami here, where I guess Soda kind of becomes maybe the focus of this episode with a little bit of Tevin. Where they have a scene in the beginning here where they're trying to get everyone excited, where they learn about the reward challenge, and they start singing about food, and they even had like a little bit of backing music from the editors, which was kind of fun. But Hunter was kept panning back to him. He looked like he wanted to
Oh,
die the entire time. Like,
oh my God.
what do you think
Hunter
about
makes
this
me so mad.
foreshadowing?
Hunter is just like, I know that everyone's going to disagree with me, and this is probably one of these hot takes that you talk about. But Hunter is just, to me, like this negative Nancy of a person because, like, here you have these people just having a good old time, like keeping the spirits high, and which is important because they just lost a huge member of their team. Like, I'm not saying Randon was like the glue that kept everyone together, but let's not act like it's not a huge morale like hit just from losing a person out of nowhere, you know? And on top of that, the tribe isn't as cohesive as it appears to be on the outside looking in because you have those divisions. You have, I know they mentioned it, like Tevin, Soda, and Hunter are supposedly the three, and then the other two, like Venus, is on the bottom essentially of all five of them. But now there's this like Hunter doesn't seem to really vibe with Soda, so this whole three idea doesn't really make sense. And Soda's just like trying to be this great morale boost for the tribe, and it's weird because even the editors, like when they put that music in, I was like, I felt that exact same line of music, and I was feeling it between her and Tevin getting in there,
Mm-hmm.
and even Liz doing the bass. I was like, this is fun, this is great. Like
I
normally I'm
was
not someone for all this positivity, but like do it right, then I like it.
I was enjoying. I was having fun. I will be honest. I haven't been a huge Soda fan up till this point. I still don't know really if I am. I do like that she got a lot of more focus this week, but it definitely seems like it's on a very I just get mixed vibes from where they're trying to go with her because she gets a lot of positive, but then a lot of negative with her too. Um, but that was kind of a fun way to kind of set up for our next scene moving forward here, leading into the Green Tribe, where they're in the process of trying to get ready for the reward challenge here, and we learn that Gem actually rehides her Beware advantage, and while they're I think looking for water or something, I guess Maria finds it, and for some reason decides to tell everybody that she has it. But I don't know if that's necessarily a bad thing, considering Maria's kind of with everybody up till this point. I mean, from what we've shown here, she's with both, Charlie's Angels and the women, and then she has the lines with the men. So it doesn't kind of strike me as weird. It doesn't seem like anybody kind of holds it against her when she kind of outs it. I mean, everybody actually tries to help her trying to find it. So, did you find it strange at all about how this whole finding the clue, at least initially, happens here with Maria?
So part of me is like, oh great, like this is a great play by Jem in my opinion, like to rehide this, maybe it'll cause some suspicion because they're trying to put on this facade of like this kumbaya thing. And part of it is also the fault of the editing, because let's be real. Did anyone see the Green Tribe in the last episode? Or were we like we remember that one flashback that happened in the second episode and then we were like, where did they go? Because I forgot the Green Tribe existed for a second, and then we went to them, And I was like, wait a minute, isn't Liz on the other tribe? And then I realized it was Mariah, and I was like, oh, right, right. You know, and
I have been
that's
getting
not
them so confused.
well, and it's nothing against them. It's just like the editing has been straight up like, oh, here's this like girls alliance, here's this guys alliance. I mean, they can swing one girl over, and so there's these two ideas, but they're all cohesive and they all go idol searching together, and we have nothing else to go off on them really. I mean, they're a list of characters. Like I'm not a huge fan of a lot of them, but just from what I've seen, I mean, there's very few things I've seen from them, so give it the benefit of the doubt, I will. But it was really interesting because I like that it kind of broke up this whole kumbaya sense of let's go searching for idols, which I still think is the dumbest thing ever because I'm like, that if you get the clue and tell everyone, that's not good. Now for Mariah in that, or not Mariah, sorry, for Maria in that moment, she was surrounded by everyone. She picked that up, or else like someone else was going to pick it up. It looked like it was just a moment that she chose to go for it, and I think it's actually a positive for her keeping it out there because it makes her seem less shady to the group. Whether or not there is this like maybe there's some fracturing going on that we haven't seen as much yet, she does seem like she's pretty chill with everyone.
Mhm. Yeah, I don't think she got any heat on her from it whatsoever. Like it was a very, I think it just goes to show that her social play is probably really good. I mean, there's something else a little bit later here, that we talk about and discuss regarding Maria here. But one other thing, at least initially here, Jem's move didn't really make a whole lot of sense to me, just because it feels like like I get that you want to have maybe the clue out there, to have it people think that there is an idol out there. Okay, I get that. But the strange part, it was just strange to me that like you leave that portion of the clue there, right? But now no
Right.
one ever actually finds anything under the thing. So obviously they know someone else secretly has the beware advantage at this point. So it could get you through the next round. It could get you through without any sort of suspicion. I'm just not really sure if it matters because I mean you could have just as easily just put it in your pocket and just wait until you lost the challenge and then just gone and got the clue. You wouldn't have needed to do all this extra stuff. But are we just assume here that Green is the fun tribe, Gem is just having fun? So let's just have fun together. Like, is this what this is all about? This is what you think?
I so this is where I mentioned like the editing is kind of strange again because for all we know, her dynamic in this tribe could understand that it's it's like a ship rocking back and forth and you don't know which way it's going to go right now because they haven't had to go to tribal. They've been very successful in all the challenges up till this point. You know, they're cohesive on the outside, but you don't really see where alliances start to form until you have that first tribal council and the vote has to be said because at that point you do have to make that choice. And so I think Jem might actually know because she's there. She has more of an idea of the dynamic going on than what we have been shown,
Mhm.
and I see it as a smart play if she can get it to go in her advantage. It's a risk. You're not sure if it's going to pay off, but if it does, she can get through multiple tribal councils potentially. The hope is though that she does get the clue the first time that I do have to go to tribal council because she doesn't have her vote still, and no one knows that. But how great would it be for her to have orchestrated a move that gets someone else out? Like she can prove that she was playing the game from the beginning and not like just coming alive if she makes it to jury kind of thing, and score an idol. Like we are looking at a possibility of like a good storyline for her. And I think that's great, especially since like she has that whole benefit of someone else has found the clue, and now they don't know what they're supposed to do. Like, and everyone's trying to work together to find this idol. So it's a little confusing, but I do think maybe that's because of the editing mostly.
Mm. Yeah, I could get on board with that being an editing situation because to some degree, if this is a move that is going to be on her resume, obviously we have to see it. It has to be out there, and it has to be at least marketed in a way that is seen as a big move, even if it's not, or even if it's kind of questionable and strange. And I have heard rumors. I wouldn't say not spoilers or anything like that, but I feel like Gem gets a lot of people's winner picks in a lot of situations. I don't know if they're necessarily basing that on the edit or anything along those lines. But I kind of see it a little bit now coming into the play here. I don't know if I'm ready to jump on it 100% just because I don't feel like we know too much about her other than this idol. And I need a little bit of personal content. I need to know who she is. But other than that, I could get on board if we see the right result, I guess, with it. So, um, I won't hate on the move as much as I was initially because I'm still just confused by what her ultimate end goal is going to be here. That's all.
I was just gonna say one last thing is it could be similar to like how Heidi played the move that we were all confused about. Um, Maybe it'll be one of those situations where it ends up having somewhat of an impact, but we didn't really see it coming from her early on. But this time it's much earlier than that. Cancel out it or like the forcing a vote on someone.
Oh, okay, right. When she decided ultimately not to do it at that vote, when we were all like, okay, she's gonna make a move, she's gonna make a move, and then she didn't.
Right.
Hmm.
Maybe
Right.
it'll be one of
Okay.
those situations where it's going to be like maybe this is like the safer route for Gem, and so that way no one's confused as to why they still haven't found the clue yet. I don't know.
I don't know. I'm gonna need to see a little bit more personally for me, but start of something interesting here. At least Green finally has some screen time, so we're excited about that there.
So,
Um, So we do get to our game's first a reward challenge. I thought it was the immunity challenge. I was not paying attention, so I was very confused to say for a few moments following this. But for their fourth reward challenge, they have to paddle out to get a key from a floating pontoon, which unlocks a post of rings that each member will need to free. Then they will have to dig under a log, and then they have to throw the rings one by one over a pole to win 5 fish if they are one of the first two tribes to do so. Now, I think the notable things about this is just how terrible Green starts out. They have to jump onto the floating pontoon to get the key from it, and Tim jumps onto it and immediately capsizes. Like feels like he went underwater for like a good few minutes. Like I was wondering if he was going to be able to get up, but he was literally struggling on this so bad to the point where Liz and Kenzie easily get theirs, jump off, get back, and they're already in the process of getting back here by the time that Tim finally gets his key. And then, which you pointed out, which I was even noticing at first, they are paddling backwards in their boats. Like Green, what you
uh,
doing? Did you
that was
expect
great.
this? Did you expect this kind of performance from Green? Because it goes from bad to worse. Because then Maria can't get her ring up, and basically Purple dominates, and Orange ends up winning to the point where Green is just out of it. This was an epic fail for Green. Like, did you see Green failing this bad?
No, because I thought, if anything, Orange was going to be the failure because they just lost someone, so their morale is going to be slightly down. I thought Purple had a really good shot at, like, possibly. I wasn't expecting them to necessarily win, like, first place, but possibly second place because, they get back to this, oh, there's four of us, we can like, really become this core four that we need to do to take this game further. But to see Green like start off, they're paddling the wrong way in the boat, and both the other tribes are paddling the other way, and you're wondering to yourself, you're like, do they just not use this boat as often as the other ones at the shore, or do they have no idea? And Kim, I think, flips the thing three times over, and I think this is where like some strategy comes in. Like you throw your biggest person onto the floating like what'd you call it?
Pon-
Platoon?
Pontoon? Yeah, it's
Pontoon.
pontoon.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know, platform, fucking
And they
platform.
both chose like someone who wasn't as big to do that, and I think that was smart. I think there was a level of strategy there that I think Green maybe didn't think so far ahead of, which is fine because it's not always necessary. Because they thought it was just a key, but there was apparently way more to it than just that.
Tim is a lot more
So
stocky than I was expecting. He's kind of like a linebacker, kind of like he's a or well, not a linebacker. He definitely gives like football player. Like he's like kind of quick, but he's big. Like he's a big guy.
right. I mean, if you wanted someone to go do it, have someone like Charlie do it. He's kind of skinny.
Yeah, he's
But
way
he's
more
so agile.
agile. Hmm.
Right.
That's the word we're
But
looking for. Agile. Tim is not agile.
right, Tim is not agile, and no shame to Tim either, because but his team knew that he was like the bigger guy, and I think they chose to keep him in the challenge for this because he's a great rower, he's got a lot of physical strength for them, and it's a great choice. I just think it was the wrong choice to have him be the person to go get the key, but
Mhm.
like everything was just going wrong in this challenge for Green, and then Maria gets that post and she can't get it going, and it's kind of sad because you watch her, she's trying so hard. But like sometimes that's the game. Sometimes that's the problem. We've seen a lot of people have these huge fails in a lot of times, but then they overcome it. They finally do this and they finish it and people like help them and root them on. Like I'll never forget when Suri gets rooted on by like everyone in the cast to go do this challenge in the middle of the ocean because she never thought that she could do it. And they cheered her on and she eventually got over this balance beam and she made her way to the end of the obstacle. But we've seen people like overcome that. Unfortunately, with Maria, it was just a little too late at that point. But it definitely didn't help that there were all these other issues going on earlier in the challenge for them. And so to see orange and purple come ahead and green having their first time as a loss, it's a good time because you're kind of rooting for purple at this point. They've lost like every challenge. They still don't have Flint. And to see them get something is like great because for me, the tarp is my number one priority. I mean, Flint also, but now how Flint works, it's kind of one of those things that you're gonna get it generally, unless you were purple in this
Right.
situation.
I was about to say.
But but the tarp really is a make or break for a lot of people in this game. You've seen those episodes of like not having it, and for them to trade out their fish, which they can't eat because they don't have Flint, is the smartest choice. And they get this toolkit and a tarp, and like I said, I put the tarp above everything else, so I think that was great. But the outcome of this challenge was really interesting because then we got to see a lot of backstory from other people too, and like the different tribes. And will this affect the next immunity challenge coming up?
And we could jump into some of those backstories here because one of them was Maria's that we get here. Obviously, just kind of based off the situation here, we knew we were going to get a post reward challenge scene from Maria here. We were learning a lot about like her family life here, and what also strikes me is kind of a very favorable situation is they took a lot of time out of this just to make sure that we're aware that her tribe is not holding this against her whatsoever. And I'm thinking at this point, I'm like, well, I have had her as my winner pick like once before. I'm kind of looking at Maria again here. It's like I don't see too many things wrong with her social game at this point. Like she's kind of on point for me at this point. Do you have any sort of inklings as Maria being a possible winner pick for you?
Maria is a really interesting situation because Maria kind of gives me this vibe of someone who's going to go far. In most scenarios in my mind, I'm not positive where she's going to place, and if she is going, I don't think she's going to be the winner personally. But I'm not discrediting her. Like she's definitely not at the 0% mark or anything. She definitely has a chance, and I liked that we saw more of her backstory. Her family's from Lebanon; they immigrated here. She talks about how she has to deal with the fact that she's always been a perfectionist and she's always been really harsh on herself, and you can see it again because she's like upset and the green team is like uh consoling her and being like this isn't your fault, and I could really relate to her, and it gave us that connection with someone on the green tribe that we've been longing for at this point in the game. And it's really nice to see like Maria is this person who has had to deal with all this adversity and she's overcoming it, and this is just another point of proving that like this is just a moment for her and she'll go past that. And I think that's a great setup for the rest of the story we're going to see from her. So I'm actually really excited for that.
Mm. I just feel like there's a lot of attention that's being paid to the presentation that we're getting from her. And I always look into situations where when things feel like they're very specifically, crafted for us to look at things in a certain way. So I definitely have Maria on my radar. Have had her on my radar for quite some time now. But something else that we have going on here that's getting other people on their radars is when we learned that they go back looking for the Beware Advantage and finds out
Oh,
that it's not there. So everybody's kind of putting two and two together that someone is actually in holding, this Beware Advantage because obviously they didn't find the box. As I said, just not
right.
going to lie to them. And apparently it looks like Tim has the suspicion planted around him at this time, and it seems like at this point, Jem's plan is working. Um, and obviously, the only thing for me that kind of makes this seem a little sus is that we don't know anything about Tim. We haven't really seen a whole lot about him. I mean, we haven't seen a whole lot of Green in general, but Tim especially. I think Tim has got to be the most purple person in the game right now, personally. Other than maybe somebody else who gets like a jumping scene later. I feel
Um,
like I don't know anything about Tim
well,
to the
even
point
that is
where
more than what Tim got.
yeah,
Just saying.
it's either I feel like it's either setting up for like a situation where we're just gonna go into the episode, he's just gonna get like a bunch of screen time in one episode and then just be knocked off, or it could be setting Tim up for maybe as like to get away with it for a little bit, and to potentially not be the first casualty of this. What are your thoughts leaning that way?
Right now I am leaning more towards Tim is going to be the first casualty because, it seemed like four people kind of banded together, and that's that magical number when you're in a six. Four is the magical number of you have the votes to do it. Even if Jem is one of them and doesn't have a vote, that's still a three to two vote. But I see what you're saying because Tim has gotten almost no screen time, like most of the Green Group. But I think what's interesting here about Tim is that he's getting blamed from something, and then they included Ben on it as well because they made that seem like those two were a duo, which is interesting because it goes back to that whole Charlie's Angels group.
And
And
we have getting more time from Ben as well too, so it's possible maybe Ben is like our surrogate like Tim confessional person, like since are we
right,
supposed to be viewing them as they're connected kind of thing?
and it could end up being that actually Tim doesn't take the fall and maybe Ben takes the fall eventually, but it starts off as Tim and then they're worried that maybe Tim has it, so they just go for Ben as like a safe like possibility, which might be why we've seen a little bit more clips of Ben every so once in a while from all the episodes. But something else that we have to address here is the fact that, leave it to Charlie. He's upset. He's a little bitter. He's like, oh, why did Maria have to find this? And then tell the whole group. And I thought that was so funny that he was so upset about that because I was like, if you all move as a unit to find that idol, it's just gonna happen naturally. But I mean, it is what it is at this point, and Jem's plan seems to be going pretty well. And maybe she can use this to her advantage to definitely make it to at least the merge.
So
Especially if Green doesn't lose any challenges anytime soon for immunity.
I kind of want to pick this up in predictions, but we're already kind of talking about it now, so I kind of just want to kind of just bring it up here. So here's my thing with Jem's plan. Okay, so eventually at some point, Maria is going to realize that this Beware Advantage that she got is fake. And we're also going to realize that that Jem has put this out there that she's willing to deceive people and not really necessarily like it would be one thing if she was to say like go to like Mariah who maybe might be her number two and tell Mariah, hey Mariah, we're gonna do this. Like she's doing this entirely on her own. So the fact that she
Right.
is willing to kind of put herself out there just I mean it might not come back on her immediately, but I mean obviously Maria's gonna walk up there to go vote at some point and she's gonna be able to vote. Like,
Right.
there's just there's an end game with Jem's plan here. It just makes me kind of wonder if things backfire on her. Like maybe she doesn't find the clue, or like maybe she doesn't put things in a situation to where, or maybe she does find it, she does get the idol, but now she has Maria or Charlie who are now looking at her like, okay, you had the idol, and you literally, you went this entire way out of the way to deceive us like this. Um, you're right, it could be a very good move if it works out for her. I'm just a little worried because we don't have like the personal content to connect with her as like a gamer at this point that I feel like you kind of get with like people that you really are supposed to be rooting for. I'm worried we don't have that for her, so I'm just wondering if it's just gonna come off as her trying to make like a big play that ultimately just kind of blows up in her face and takes her out next. Just because it's him being the other boot, it makes sense based off of his content, but I also just feel like with him too, there's something we're missing. There's just something we're missing from Green at this point. So to put this all together. So
Uh,
yeah.
editing time. I would be interesting to see the statistics of like how much time we have directly of only purple compared to oranges can't compare to green, because I would assume that green is at the lowest at this point still. It, or at least it feels that way. But I think this is where that risk comes into play with Jem's plan. Like, if she pulls a Banu and just like tells people like, well, she might as well kiss herself goodbye because she's not lasting anytime soon. But if she can keep this a secret and never tell anyone, then she doesn't really have to worry about the idea, because eventually, Maria kind of is already understanding that this might be a fake, and the idea has already been floated around this early on in it. So if this is a fake and someone's trying to fake them out, if they get rid of Ben or if they get rid of Tim or both, they might think that they're getting rid of just get rid of someone who's not actually, um, you know, who's actually got an idol in their pocket without realizing they didn't actually get rid of an idol.
Mm-mm.
And when she finds out she has to vote and she can vote, that'll be an interesting time too, because you would have thought that already someone would have brought that up. And maybe it did happen and we just didn't see it. Maybe that's what starts like kind of the suspicion. But it's really just going to depend 100% on how she plays this. Because right now, it doesn't seem anyone suspecting her of it. And it seems like she kind of knows her tribe well enough to know who it might be best to like avoid in the long run. Because, like I said, she might be doing this as just a ploy to help further gain that momentum, to guarantee that it's the Charlie's Angels alliance that goes on to win rather than the men's alliance. I mean, only time will tell, especially with the lack of editing we're getting. But
Mm-hmm.
you bring up a
Mm-hmm.
fair point. This is playing with fire, and sometimes you get burned if you're not careful. Look at Banu and being a toddler stuck in the stove. Kenzie said it well enough that I'm
I'm
just
just
saying.
I'm just always worried. Well, I would say I Survivor is notorious, and I would kind of always go back to like the Survivor David versus Goliath premiere when they set like the ultimate winner up to be like the first boot, and then he ends up getting saved. Like they
Oh,
love to put people in these positions and then immediately turn things around either the next episode or make it a long-term arc where things slowly change in the other direction. So that I feel like we kind of got a lot of those set up for this episode here, and I'm just a little worried about where it goes here, and the preview doesn't make me feel very much better about it. But I mean, if it does work for Gem, my props to her. I'm just a little worried. I don't know if it's how I would have played it, but I'm all here for some big brain moves here at this point. Because one tribe that's not giving us any big brain moves at all is purple at this point.
oh,
Um, so they do
well,
come
there
back.
has to be a big brain there.
I mean,
I mean,
they're
I'm just
trying.
saying they had
They're trying.
Jelinsky, they've had Downey. Like
They're
it,
trying.
it has been a struggle for
You
them.
know, I would say I feel like half of this tribe, that the half that eventually probably get through this episode here. Tiff, Q,
Yeah.
Kenzie. Q a lot more so than I'm willing to give him credit for. I think at the beginning, I
Oh,
will say Q and Ben and Randon specifically. I will say those three. I did not give them any sort of like social credit. Well, in my words, they are showing me that they have the social potential. So, um, I appreciate that. But I'm still a little questionable about everything here. But we do learn here, at least Q is trying to step up here at this point, to try to at least train Banu at this point. 'Cause it's like, well, if we're
Yeah.
gonna win, then we need to be around. So there's this fun moment where he's trying to coach Banu here, and I actually I kind of like this from Q. I think it's very genuine. He's you can tell he really likes Banu. He wants Banu to be included. It's clear, like obviously he wanted to keep Banu over Kenzie, but um there's a lot more warmth to him that I don't think I got in his preseason footage. That he's a lot more emotional, a lot more sensitive than I give him credit for. And I actually kind of think, even though he does kind of give off of like, a big obvious merge boot energy, um he does have some positives. He does have some upsides here. So I would like to see Q possibly do well moving forward here. And we're not talking about Q from Drag Race here, by the way. Um, what are your thoughts on Q's
Oh,
whole situation here with Banu? Do you have any positives here on Q, or are we still at where
um,
we were at in our draft and leaving him to second to last?
okay, so here's my thing with Q. I still I don't fully agree with you here. I think Q warms up more to Banu, not out of wanting to be with Banu as much so as like a necessity because of how things went with Kenzie and how he knows that she's a little shady and she's willing to like because Kenzie needed to go to Q and Tiffany and like have this conversation if they were going to be this threesome from the get, about this plan of like telling like, well, what if we get rid of Q kind of thing. And I think because once again someone's telling on people and what people are saying behind each other's backs, Banu. He trusted Banu at first, and it was like, oh, Banu's honest to a fault, and he means like a fault. Like this person doesn't seem like they have what it takes to really play Survivor. So at this point, he's in survival mode of like trying to figure out a way if maybe he can convince Banu to maybe kind of take back or undo the damage that Banu has done to Q's social game. I mean, it's already bad enough that you're on the tribe that's like just a sinking ship in the beginning. You don't win a single challenge yet, other than this reward challenge, which could be a good thing, or you could see the curse of win the reward, lose the immunity. We've seen it
Yeah.
a million times already.
Uh-huh.
But I really think that Q is just trying his best to keep that ship from going down further with Banu. And, you know, Kenzie was right when she said that he had a lot of patience for Banu, and I think that that is a great quality to have. But I don't think that he's necessarily doing this out of the kindness of his heart. I think he's doing this just to keep his game alive, and good on him because you know what, I feel that way too. I would do the same thing, but I don't see a way in which Q ever makes it to the end and wins this game. I think a lot of shit would have to happen for that to happen. I even wrote down in the pre-season like confessionals where we got to know them. I was like, not winning unless everyone is drunk and or stupid. Those are my exact
I'm
words. I
not
was
saying
like,
he's winning either. What I'm saying, he has a lot more upside than I think that we're giving him credit for as well too. Like saying he's
oh
definitely not winning, like okay, for sure. Like he definitely has a lot of things that are going against him. But as far as him being in the best, I would say, mindset, the best ability to like strategize and just his ability going into it. I think he
yeah.
has what it takes to go a lot further than we're giving him credit for, pretty much. Well,
Well,
is all what I was meaning by that.
I mean, when you see, okay, here's the other issue. Q is like one of the people who can raise up the mast and the sail on the ship kind of thing. And Banu is like the anchor that someone threw. Banu is the type of person that took the anchor and like, I'm throwing it overboard, but he tried to throw it overboard from the middle of the ship, so he just put another hole in the ship. Like that's like when we're comparing it, like Tiffany's over here trying to do the navigation and Kenzie's trying to steer the ship. And Q's got the muscle and got the ability, and he's got more than just muscle. He's clearly got a brain power on him. But Tiffany made that comment early in the episode that if she had found out what Banu had said after voting out Kenzie, she would have just jumped headfirst in the ocean. And I think that is so accurate how she was feeling at that moment. As you kind of feel bad for this purple team because I know I was rooting for Banu to go home earlier in the season. I mean, I wanted Jelinski out, but I was hoping Banu would go before Jess. And I feel like they kept this anchor here who is just constantly screwing up, who is constantly ruining other people's games, and he doesn't even know that he's doing it. Like, he is unaware to the fact that he is having a negative effect for these people on the other people in the game. Like, he is so, like, naive and ignorant to what he is doing. So, I mean, good on Q for keeping the patience, because Kenzie clearly had that little blow up then, and she went to apologize afterwards, and maybe it was like a strategy move, but like, again, she did have that outburst a little, well, not really an outburst, but just a moment where she could not be patient with Banu, and she realized that she had to do what Q was doing and support him and help him. So I do have to give credit to Q for that, 100%.
And actually, I want to talk about Kenzie a little bit here too, because she is a very interesting case to me as well too, because she's getting a lot of focus, a lot of screen time. We know a lot about Kenzie's game, and we know basically that everybody thinks that she is a giant threat. There's a lot of negative to her edit, but she always feels like at the end of it is able to find a way, or at least with the way the edit goes, a way to kind of change it all into her favor to kind of, take it over or, make things work in her advantage here. And if we're going into what I was saying about like, the whole Nick Wilson, let's put people in like these precarious situations and make them find ways out of it. Kenzie's been that person this season, and I feel like I I I I don't know why get this gut feeling that she is being set up here for a very, very long run. I don't know if she's going to be the next person to go here on purple. The story isn't leading me that way, even though, all points at this point feel like like Kenzie should be in trouble here. Uh, what are your thoughts on this on Kenzie's story up to this point?
Okay, so Kenzie at this point, I think she's a really dynamic character. I like that word a lot here for her because she has this great alliance that she first makes because her and Tiff get along really well. Tiff and Q and her all form an alliance. She starts to get along really well with Q as well. They form this trio, and they realize that they're all pretty good players in the game, but also at the challenges, which is kind of what they're focusing on first off in the very beginning. And they get this idea going. They're good core three, and then things get a little flipped around when Kenzie throws out Q's name just as like a bait to see what people would say, and there's that tension there. And so Kenzie is at the midpoint of a lot of the drama that happens in her tribe, and with the not winning of the challenges too, and being without Flint for so long, there's a lot that goes on there. I think Kenzie's getting a lot of time though, because first of all, a lot of the focus is on purple. Who's going to go next, because so many episodes they've lost the challenges. What is the dynamic like? Can this team turn themselves around? And they did during the first challenge, the reward challenge. But Kenzie is interesting because you don't know if she is going to be closer to Q or closer to Tiffany at first, and then you realize, oh, it's Tiffany for sure. But then you're like, is Tiffany going to choose, if she has to to go with Q or to go with Kenzie. And then there's that setup of where it looks like she's going to go with Q. And now Kenzie is kind of looked as like Kenzie doesn't know that she was supposed to go home last episode. But then, Banning starts talking again and he opens his mouth and now they're back cool with Kenzie, but at the same time, there's that thought that, oh, now Kenzie's this big bad like puppet master in the Purple Tribe, and she's controlling everything going on, and that Q and Tiffany are just her like more upper level puppets essentially. And so I think because of the way that Banu kind of, presented the tribe dynamic to Ben and oh my gosh.
Liz.
Who else was at the? I'm sorry, who?
Liz?
Maria? Oh, Liz. Yeah,
Maria.
the way that, girl, I could not remember. I was like, I don't remember.
Angela? Was it you?
Maria's literally on the Green Tribe. See, that's what I mean. Like the Green Tribe, I didn't even remember because I forgot Ben was on it. But so yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot to do with like the storytelling that's going on, and it's a great narrative to start. And I think that they knew she was going to be a fan favorite. I mean, even in our group, like a lot of people liked Kenzie, a lot of people liked Tiffany, a lot of people liked Venus, just from the get that those people were very, likable, and even people. I think even people outside of our group are just going to respond well to Kenzie because she has this play style that could be reminiscent of some of the greater players, like maybe a Poverty or maybe like an Aubrey potentially, like a mix of the two almost. And you might find that people are attracted to that type of style. And so I think Kenzie's just a really great setup for the beginning of the story of the season, especially since so much of it revolves around the Purple Tribe.
It's very true, very true. The problem with Purple absolutely is the fact is how much of their content is circumstantial because they have to show it, and how
Mm-hmm.
much is because they are actually winners. And I think that's the issue whenever you have a tribe, a disaster tribe like this, is
Yep.
how do you really evaluate what you're getting in the other tribes because you get seasons like season 41, for example, where Ua is the disaster tribe and you're fully expecting to go into the merge with Ricard and Chan, and one of those two are probably going to win, and they're both out before the first hour or the first hour in the finale. The tribe that ends up being the least focus is the tribe that ends up winning. And I'm like, well, okay, if we're looking at it in that perspective, then Green has the winner on it somewhere. And it's probably going to be like Mariah or Liz or whichever the one that's on that tribe. But like,
Right.
yeah, I definitely see the issue here with Purple and with how we really are going to evaluate their edit in a new era sort of way when this is the first real disaster tribe that we've had. I mean, I don't think we're getting a swap at this point. So they're going to be the first real disaster tribe that we've had since 41 that's gonna kind of slide through for a little bit. So it'll be very interesting to kind of see how they change edits in a lot of these situations to kind of make up for that. So I'm having a little bit of hard time. While I like Q, I like Kenzie, I like Tiffany. Um, Purple is just an anomaly at this point. Um, another tribe that kind of is also, honestly, they're all kind of anomalies here at this point. But I want to go back to Orange here just for a little bit before we get to the immunity challenge, just because they did get a little bit more content before the end of the episode, which I think was very important here. One thing that was very kind of interesting to me, though, was throughout this whole episode, we did not hear from Venus at all.
Randon was Venus's like number one, so it's interesting that they didn't make it more about her being upset about that because maybe that doesn't really matter in the overall like edit of the season of what's going to happen. And maybe the only reason we saw her because of her being there with the tribe, she was sweeping during the song, which I thought was funny. They had that clip of Soda going around to everyone, and we saw her talking to Venus then. But that was the most, other than when we saw her in the challenges. So, yeah. I mean, you bring up a great point.
Yeah,
I didn't even think about it.
I mean, as quickly as, if you really want to think about it too, as quickly as her relationship with Randon started, it ended just as quickly. like we really didn't we don't get much depth into anything that we're being shown with Venus. And it's definitely making me look like I might be right that her winner chances are maybe just because she's just like a fun villainess kind of character, or someone that's ultimately going to be an important character in Orange. Because as things kind
Mhm.
of shift around here, and as you said earlier here, Soda is talking with everyone. Well, Tevin is noticing, and Tevin is definitely worrying that she is starting to get in everybody's head. And I'm a little bit worried for you now because Soda is your last pick here. So I'm all like, oh no, are we getting set up here for a Soda blindside at the end of this episode? Just because Orange, for me, felt like they were going to be the tribe that was going to end up ultimately going to Tribal Council. I didn't think Purple was going to go back. At least, maybe I was just hoping that they were on their way to kind of shift things around, even though I was kind of ready for Bono to leave. But I was trying to be positive. I was trying to hope maybe something different was going to happen here. But Tevin got a lot of focus this episode here. Um, when he got his family backstory, where he was preparing the fish, and we learned about his relationship with his father, who was the one that ultimately was the one that taught him his fish, or taught him how to prepare the fish. I thought that was a very nice moment there for Tevin, especially because we haven't had a whole lot from him since the very first, big confessional that he had at the start of the season. And I think we're always going to have to go back to that to some degree. But yeah, he got this gigantic narration. But I'm also kind of now in the mindset that I'm really wondering if maybe Tevin is like a runner up, or a third place, or not third place, sorry, or a fourth place finisher. Because I feel like he's getting a lot of emotional content, but not necessarily winner content. What are your thoughts on kind of Tevin and Soda and everything that's happening here on Orange?
So I find it hard to like really distinguish what a winner content looks like, especially in the modern era, because we've seen some of the winners who I am not a fan of get really, I think, poor edits at times, and
Are
then
you talking about Gabler?
I am 100% talking about Gabler. Uh, and then it turns around, and I think Tevin's getting a mostly positive edit because he has a lot to say. He seems like he's one of the most pivotal people in this game right now. Like, as far as his tribe, I consider him the person of his tribe. Like, if there's one person that defines what's happening in the tribe at the time, he is that person for Orange, in my opinion. Maybe it wouldn't have been that way had Randon not gone, but with Randon leaving and then him joining in with Soda to be like, that core of him, Soda, and Hunter as they were talking about, and them doing the song, but Hunter once again still having his like mean mugging, I hate Soda, she talks too much kind of thing going on. It's interesting because I felt something for Tevin because I like him as a player. He was even on my list of people I might choose until he got snatched up. But we start off with this really nice clip of him getting to do something that he never got to do with his father one last time before he, unfortunately passes. And we see him going and doing this for his tribe after they win the reward challenge, and that's really great. And then it flips the script immediately to back to game mode. And are we sure that we're making the right decision about having Soda as like a good a good person to keep around? And it sets up that narrative that Soda might be the next person to go, or she might be making it pretty far in the game, depending on which way they decide to flop a vote if they have to, if they end up losing. Because, I mean, as we saw in the reward challenge, they seemed, for the most part, okay, but they were less steady than they had been. And that most likely due to the loss of Randon and how that shook them. But at the same time, like Tevin is stepping up and showing how much of a player he is. And as much as a player that he says that Soda is, I'm wondering if people are noticing that, oh, Tevin is much more of a player than like what he is letting on. And he thinks Soda's playing really hard. And I'm worried that now he's revealing too many of his cards early on. Because if I was the other people on the tribe, I'd be like, you're talking about this person, and maybe for now I'll agree, but if Tevin is behind that vote early enough on, he'll look like the ringleader, which I do kind of see him as in this tribe. and that could lead to his downfall if he plays a little too aggressive, too fast. And he would be doing almost essentially the same thing that he said Soda was doing. So it's interesting that Tevin, is this critical role. And as soon as he started going against Soda, I was like, oh, okay, Tevin, I'm gonna need you to hit the brakes, girl. That's my last pick left. Like I only had Randon and Soda. So now that Randon's gone, I'm gonna need you to calm down because I'm not trying to lose back-to-back people. Like that's embarrassing. Calm down.
Both of my picks didn't even make the merge. I can't even get dated.
Oh God. Come on, Kat. Come through with your. You know what? Kat was right for that advice. No one's gonna want to date someone who can't even make the merge. Like,
I
yeah,
mean,
I
you
agree.
shouldn't. And I wouldn't date our person who went home tonight either. Just kidding. Sorry about it.
Well, I mean, everyone said it during. They're like, they were married. And I was like, okay. I didn't say it, but I was thinking it just like the rest of us.
I feel like the thing with Orange to me is that it feels like they've always like compared to Green, Orange has always felt like their narrative has felt more important. Like whatever they're doing is going to kind of be the linch point in the game for whatever reason. I don't know why. I've always kind of felt this way, but I've don't necessarily think that there are because I don't know if you know like Eject or editing logic and things like that. But there's like a rule where one tribe is considered like the more complicated tribe, and they're the ones that we're gonna get the more dynamic on. And because we get the most like dynamics into the inner workings of them, those are the tribes that literally that usually have the winner on them. I feel like Orange is the tribe that is giving us like the most like post merge setups here, but I don't know if I feel like it's necessarily complex in a way that is making me feel like someone on this tribe is winning at the end of the day. Like they feel like to me like they're still like the enemies. I feel like we're not supposed to be rooting for Orange as much as we are supposed to be rooting for Orange because they're Tevin and Hunter. I'm
Uh,
conflicted. I'm conflicted. This everything about 46 in this edit is just like there's so much good, but there's also like so many red flags. Everything. So I think it's just these people.
I think the Orange Tribe though is like that's one of the best parts about this Orange Tribe is I kind of see them almost as like either the main tribe that has like that's going to have a lot of the messy votes or the blind sides or anyone pulling out a random idol in the middle of the merge is going to come from that team. Like I really see like this group disintegrating at some point because they've already been talking about it and they haven't even had to think about tribal once. And they're already like, no, this person's too much. The first day, Randon clocked Venus and was like, that's poverty 2.0, girl. I know what that is. And she didn't have a really good person to like do the poverty thing to on that tribe. And, he told them all, he was like, watch out, watch your backs. And everyone was like, oh. So I get what you're saying, and
What?
then of course there's Liz, and
God, who I thought was gonna get
Liz
money
is
back from eating fish this episode. I
oh
was
my
fully
god,
ready for Banu to get saved again because Liz ate fish because she's malnourished and she's allergic to it and died. I was fully
oh
ready
my
for that
gosh.
ending. Fully ready for it.
When she said she was allergic to coconuts, I thought, what are you doing coming on Survivor, girl? Like you can't even drink the coconut water. I was nervous for her, but you know what? She has been like so far like underestimated, under edited, but we could see her becoming, I don't know, like the Aubrey character that eventually gets the step up and then starts to become important and really take a hold of what's going on. But that's another part of this Orange Tribe of you don't really know what everyone's going to end up doing. We have some of the stereotypes though. I feel like Tevin's the strong leader of the group, even though it looks like from the outside Hunter would probably be the strong leader. It's not really that. Like Hunter's the pretty boy who's strong, who everyone seems to like. I'm not a huge fan of him, but I've never been a fan of that archetype in Survivor anyways. But he has a great relationship with Tevin and he wants Soda gone, so his relationship with Tevin grows. Tevin, that ringleader, the guy that everyone likes, You got Soda, the girl that everyone likes. She's really upbeat. She's really positive. But is she great in challenges? Not really. We have Venus, who's like the flirt, the girl who knows she's pretty and is going to use that to her advantage if she can. And then you got the oddball, Liz, over here. So I mean, there's a great mix in this group, and that's probably why they feel like either the secondary or the primary tribe that we're going to see. Only because Purple has gotten so much edit from just always being going to tribal, always failing at the challenges, so they have to have that edit. But Orange is a complete mystery, but it seems like they're important, like not in the same way that Green's a mystery is, and we can't even remember their names.
I feel like Orange is maybe the drama, maybe not the winner, if that makes yeah.
Yeah,
They feel important, but they don't feel like there's some certain storylines on Green to me feel very more important, like long term. There's things on Orange that feel a lot more short term, dramatic, and for like viewing purposes. So, yeah, I mean, I get we're gonna have to wait and see if anybody else is able to actually lose a challenge outside of Purple. And we attempted to do that in this episode when we went to the immunity challenge here. They
uh,
this was a challenge. It was a challenge here. So one by one, they have to climb up to the top of a tall tower and leap into the ocean. Then they climb a crate and then jump back to the ocean. And then two players will raise a bag of buoys, and then they will shoot three of those buoys into a basket. First two tribes to do so will get immunity. Siga sits out Gem and Maria, and Nami sits out Tevin. So initially here, Green gets out to the early lead, making up for their last challenge, followed by Orange, and followed by Purple, who falls behind, partially due to Q being kind of slower than the rest of the starters here, and partially because Banu makes a gigantic blunder where he skips the crate and goes straight for the buoys and then has to go all the way back, hitting the crate and then going back to the platform to finish. Um, they eventually will have to jump onto another floating pontoon in the water, and want it to shoot the balls. And Tim, at this point, jumps onto another floating pontoon and falls off ominously again. This being his storyline for the episode that he cannot balance on pontoons.
uh,
Okay, sure. I'm glad he's getting some screen time at least. Um, the fact that he's just constantly sinking, it's not surprising here that the rest of the tribes are able to catch up when he only gets one ball in. Hunter, being Hunter, literally just shoots every single ball in. Did he even miss one? I don't even think he missed one.
I don't think
It's
he
just
missed a single
to
one.
edit. I don't think they showed him missing one.
And
Yeah.
if he did miss one, it was probably one on the final one, but they just took it out of there because it didn't matter.
It didn't matter because I mean at that point nobody else had gotten anything else either. And so Orange again wins another challenge. I'm kind of at this point where I'm like, does Hunter just win like every individual challenge? 'Cause I don't see anybody who could possibly compete with him. Like nobody is on this guy's level at this point physically. He's really really good.
He's really good.
He is.
No,
He's really
I
good.
agree. I agree he is. And that I believe will be his downfall, like it is most of the time for people who are that archetype, like I mentioned earlier. But I think something that like has to be mentioned about this is in this challenge, he starts off so strong for Orange, and then they lose a crap ton of time from Soda. And like, she's my girl, but I knew that she wasn't gonna do great in the challenge. So I was kind of like, wow, Tevin sat out. That's kind of interesting.
Mhm.
But at the same time, you have to think about who you're gonna set out of challenges because next time you still have to sit someone out and it can't be the same person. And if they do these like immunity then reward challenges, that's really going to come into play. So I kind of understood, but they lost a lot of time, and I really was worried for Orange at first because I think they were the last one to get to the platform, right? Or was
Yeah, they
Purple the
were.
finally? Okay, because
Yeah, they were. They actually, I think they got to the same time about that Purple did.
okay, and the only reason that they were not if they weren't exactly the last person to make it was because Banu, of course, didn't follow the rules, wasn't listening to the instructions, totally messed up on going over the crates and just went to the side of it. Like, the obstacle wasn't there because you had to use it, which I just thought was funny because like, when in the world do you skip an obstacle? Like, this isn't like Gen X versus Millennials where you can take the shortcut and add the extra pieces at the end.
Ooh.
But you know, it's it's so interesting to see how like these little bits of time really made the difference in this challenge, because at the end it really was 2 balls on green, 2 balls on purple, who was going to win. And it was interesting because Orange, who I thought was going to have the biggest issue this episode, ends up being second place in the reward challenge, and then coming in first place in the immunity challenge. Their streak continues.
It's
There's
all Hunter
no,
though. That's all. That was
I
all
mean,
Hunter. It has been Hunter for like the last like 3 challenges.
I agree with you. Hunter is carrying the physical part of these challenges 1000%, and even the mental parts he's great at. And that is what makes him such a dangerous player, and why I don't see him that's why he won't end up being one of my winner picks, because it's just not realistic. I do think that he has a good chance of winning a lot of individual immunities, but it is impossible for one person to win every single individual immunity. It hasn't happened. It won't happen. There's going to be something that someone's just better at, or that day it just doesn't work out for you, you know. But I mean, right now, going back to this performance, he did amazing. He kept his team alive. He brought them through the ringer, and they were just like, bam, we got through it. We're done. And watching Green and Tim struggle with these pontoons again, I mean, unfortunate for him, but I thought he almost injured himself. I was like, Tim, what are you doing trying to jump from one to the other? Like, that was a choice.
It's funny because
Um,
Hunter definitely jumped on his, but they had like the camera like panned out way far away, so you couldn't really see him like kind of like struggling when he was jumping on it. But yeah,
right.
they I guess they were supposed to jump onto it. I think that's just how they had to get to it, or the easiest way to get onto it versus like being in the water and trying to get onto it while it's like already toppling. There's no sense of gravity on
Right.
it. Whereas if you jump onto it from the thing, I guess there's more gravity there probably to assist
And
you.
yeah, and to no hate to Tim again, it's just unfortunately like you've got Q and Hunter, who are both like a bit slimmer, seem to be a bit more athletic, so they maybe not struggled as much with that pontoon. But with Tim, he struggled a little bit, and that maybe cost them a little bit of time. But overall, Green did a pretty good job in the challenge. I mean, it is not easy to hit those baskets in the middle of the sea. Like, that's difficult. And to see Hunter complete it so fast, it wowed crazy. I was shocked. I mean, was happy because I want So to go home. So obviously I was so happy. But I think one thing that we really passed over in this challenge that needs to be addressed, my disdain for Charlie when he jumped off and said Taylor Swift really hard.
Oh,
I was
I
like,
was trying to forget it,
oh.
okay? I was trying to pretend like it didn't happen. Just
I
like
was
just like
like,
the whole like this whole like moment where maybe I have to maybe talk about it really quickly here, because they made a big scene, a big deal about Mariah jumping, and then it was literally like she literally
oh,
like she didn't even have to jump over anything. It wasn't even like a challenge, like one of those challenges where they have to jump off and like smash the like tile that's hanging there. She literally could have just like rolled off the side. She could have just climbed off the side. Like the jumping, they made a
yeah.
big deal about it for no reason. Please don't tell me that Mariah is our winner and her winner arc is going to be the fact that she could jump. So I'm just like
You
this
know what?
poor girl, this
I
poor
had
girl on
never
Reddit.
seen I had never seen someone be so bad at jumping who wasn't like a bigger person. Like, as a fat person myself, I was like, girl, my knees are not doing that jumping thing. Like, I'm only jumping if like I need to stay alive, kind of thing. And then I saw Mariah. It looked like Mariah lifted her, like bent her knees, and that was the extent. I was like, wait, but you didn't get like an inch of air almost. Where like I was so worried for her, and then they showed us, hey, there's no key to get grab on this one, and I was like, congratulations, like you don't have to worry anymore. Like, you're good, you're safe. Like, no one's gonna. And I hope for her sake that she doesn't have to be a person to ever have to do that challenge, because if not, that tribe is not winning. Like, I know they're all about positivity and lifting everyone up, but even Banu's God wasn't lifting up Mariah at that point. I was like, all the miracles that he's gotten for Banu. I mean, he can't do that. He can't make that happen.
We've used our
Like,
one miracle up on Randon, and still Banu wanted more. We,
right? I
we
mean, I'm sorry.
so
It's just I was like,
just left
Mariah,
a
you're just not
disappointment.
trying hard enough. And I thought that Orange was going to lose, but they continued to win this time, and that is that. It does speak a lot to how athletic Hunter is, and I was a little worried actually after the confessionals and stuff that they had been talking about between the two challenges. I was like, are they going to possibly throw the challenge to try to get Soda out? But I don't think Hunter's that type of person, so I was like, I don't see that happening, but come on, it won't be the first, it won't be the last time that someone throws a challenge and then shit goes down and eventually they end up regretting it and everything goes like to hell afterwards. But
Yeah.
like even with all of that history, they still do it. So that's great that they didn't. I do think that Banu is to blame for Purple's loss here. I do think that just that extra time of him having to swim back and go back over the platform. Yeah, he was fast at unclipping the buoys, but that little amount of time really did seem to matter because you know Green had so much time that they just weren't doing great on the baskets, and that kind of was the hardest part of the challenge. Which, by the way, have to bring this up. Jeff had said that the beginning part, pulling yourself up on the rope up to the tall jump off cliff, was the easiest one in the challenge, and I felt the opposite. I was like, "Oh no, girl! You saw what happened to Brandon last year, right? Like we could get a repeat."
The
Like
fact
I
that
was
that
like, "Oh,
happened on
someone's gonna
day
roll."
one too for Brandon. Oh my god, that poor
Oh, and he couldn't even use like the "oh, I was tired and I didn't have water in my butt." No, he was completely out of it. And like, look, I'll be the first to tell you, I don't know if I could have done it, girl. I would like, first of all, I'm not in shape. I don't go to the gym. Like, bad cardio. You know what? Like, so I'm not blaming anyone per se, but if you know you're gonna go and audition for one of these shows, you better get yourself together. But
Don't be smoking on your
unfortunately,
vape until you're about to leave.
right.
Don't
And
be getting into a marriage and wanting some D because you're sad and upset looking at you, Sean.
oh my God, Sean, the
Don't be quitting
negative
because you want some
4.
D. Ugh.
I gave him that negative
Giving
4
you a
last
hate.
season, and y'all were like, "Oh, he's awful." I was like, "Oh, he's the worst,
I
the
didn't pick
worst."
Sean. I didn't pick him.
I,
I didn't pick him.
I, it was a choice, but back to this. I just thought it was shady that Jeff had said that as Oh my God, this is the worst part. He said it as Soda was going up the climbing wall, and you could see she was struggling with it. And I was like, "Oh my God, she's gonna take so much time. Orange isn't gonna make it through." And they're gonna be like, "Okay, this is the reason." And unlike Green, they're gonna be like, "We totally blame you. You going home, get the chop, bye," kind of thing. And I was like, I was really worried because I thought that's what they were setting it up to. And so when
Well,
Hunter came through at the end, I was like, "Whew."
well, Hunter and Tim both ultimately come through here. Q doesn't have enough time, unfortunately, to get baskets yeah, get all the baskets in. And Banu also is really bad at getting him his balls to shoot Q. So unfortunately, it looks like Yanu is going back to the tribal council that they missed last week, and heading into the commercial, it's not even not even a secret here. We literally get a confessional from Kenzie, Hugh, and Tiffany saying that it's an easy vote, that it's Banu, and he literally has no vote to protect himself. He can't even use the shot in the dark. There's no idol for him to find. He is literally this is the most obvious vote I have seen since I think I want to say like the Alicia vote in Korong, where they literally end the challenge and go to tribal council with like 5 minutes left. Like they don't even vote. They they don't even vote. They literally just Banu just accepts his fate, and they get rid of him. He goes. He leaves. And
I mean,
that it
yep.
felt like that last moment though, his last like 10 minutes while he was there, where he goes from like paranoid. to pleading to people, to trying to find an idol, to realizing that he's doomed, to cursing God, to loving the island. I felt like that was literally
Oh,
his entire 4 episode arc in the span of just like condensed down in like a 2 minute form. Like, you want the Bonnie story, just watch the 5 minutes before he was about to leave. Like, that is
I
the bottom
I
line.
feel like I have to contest that statement and say you need to watch episodes two's Tribal Council. Like it is one of the wildest things. And I have to say, you know what? The vote tonight for Bonner to go home, just it was a flashback right back to it might as well have just been Hannah or Sean giving up the game and being like, I'm ready to go home. Pieces,
Mhm.
deuces, like, let's get out of here. Like, I mean, with Hannah, at least there was like a huge talk about things, and everyone was like, "Are you sure? What is going on?" We had this plan to like get rid of Brandon, but now we're not going to. um, not that Brandon was worse off in the challenges, but he did want to be there, and Banu clearly wanted to be there. But again, Banu's whole thing was, "I'm not here for the $1,000,000. I'm here for the million hearts." And I was like, I don't know who you think, and I know that there's going to be some people, and I'm sorry if you're a Banu fan, but I feel like you're fake and a phony. Like if you like those type of people, you know what? Great for you. I think that this might not be the show for you, in my opinion. Reality TV might not be the ish for you, at least not a competition reality show. Like that's my personal opinion, just because Banu made a thing where when they got back to the camp, he said when they all went to go have a talk because they were taking off their wet clothes, he decided not to join them, take off his wet clothes. He could have gone over there, taken off his wet clothes with them, and he said that even then the three of them were having a conversation and not including me. And I asked myself, I said, Banu, are you not included, or have you been like useless? Have you been the anchor of this team and you know it? And you yourself just are, you know it. You just know it. And as a super fan, again, still confused by this term being used with him because I don't know if it's the lack of food or the inability to like be self-aware of what's going on around you. Like Banu has this great story where he comes from poverty, and so he's used to this. He said I can deal with this because I've dealt with these struggles and this adversity in my life. And I was like kind of rooting for him because of that. But it just he has a complete meltdown. He yells at God, blaming him like how are you going to blame God when he already saved you like 3 times and
Right.
like God was like, "Oh yeah, Brandon, here's your spine. Bye." Like what? And I know that Bonnie probably doesn't like obviously equate that to the same way we are just joking about it, but Banu has had a very lucky run as far as I would say, because Banu was essentially the Brandon of the season, where he's not good in challenges, he's not great as a tribe mate, and they want him gone as soon as possible. But the only reason that they were ever considering keeping him was because he was easier to manipulate. But you even see then that he's just too unstable, and he's too emotional. And emotions can be great, but without that intelligence and control of your emotions, it can just get the best of you. And it does for Banu a lot. He goes down and begs on his knees to Tiffany, and Tiffany's
Yeah.
embarrassed for him and is like, I'm not even gonna talk to you if you don't get up and get off of your knees to me. Like, it was hard to watch because it was pathetic, but at the same time, he could have flipped it, I think. Maybe not perfectly, but he would have had to start that earlier in the episode. But he just kept giving everyone else his faith. Like, well, I hope you're here for it. I didn't really see Banu as like a player in this game. Banu didn't actively do things. It seemed like he was more reactive.
Mhm.
And I think that's one of the big downfalls for him. The only time I felt like he was very active was it's already too late. I'm 100% going home. I'm going to go search for this idol. He can't find the idol. He's like, why is there no idol? And even then I was like, is he aware that there is an idol and that someone else must have it? Or is he just completely unaware altogether? And at this point, I really didn't know if he knew that someone else must have had the idol, because like I said, there was a lack of play going on from him this season, and Jess was confused, and he felt like he was a puppet for everyone else to use. But in reality, again, he was just the anchor on the ship. And eventually, they just tied him to the anchor and they threw it off board. And maybe their ship will stop sinking now. Maybe Purple has like a similar story to last year's Purple Tribe, where three of the members end up going to the merge, and they actually end up succeeding, and two of them actually make the final tribal council, and the only other one that doesn't literally goes out during the tiebreaker fire making challenge. Like, I'm not saying that's going to happen. I doubt it, but maybe we'll see some kind of resurrection of Purple, and maybe they won't go to tribal council for once this season outside of Randon getting injured.
I mean, I still have at least one narrative person in on purple that I feel like would still kind of fit for a winner for me personally. I mean, obviously it's not Banu. And I mean, the thing with Bonnie though, is just, what it felt like for me is that it just seemed like there was a point where his brain kind of switched off and he really let paranoia of the game get to him to the point where he was not able to like he strikes me as someone who's just not good under pressure. And as soon as things start to get difficult, it just feels like he wanted someone to help him and he couldn't find it, and as soon as he basically realized he was alone and he just gave up trying to make any sort of real like connections with people. And it's like it's very clear that he had avenues to work with. It's just his either his fundamental understanding of the game is just not correct, or like when he says super fan, like are you watching on mute? Like, you do realize you have to lie, you have to betray, you have to, scheme and plot with people. Like, you have to, it seems like these were things he was unwilling to do, or just didn't even realize that you had to do, or felt like everybody else was doing, but then he was unwilling to do himself. And it was just, it, yeah, he applied for the wrong show. I, I just, I don't think he was watching the same show he applied for. I think we need to really check like his Netflix account and see what show it was he was watching. 'Cause I don't think it was Survivor.
Bonnie was watching The Trust.
Right? We
Bonnie
only
was
vote if
watching The
we have
Trust.
to, right?
Yes, yeah. I think that Banu's sensitivity and his emotional uh side really kind of he doesn't always work out in Survivor that well, because like you said, you do need to lie, you do need to cheat a little bit, like not cheat, but you have to play dirty at times. Like that's the name of the game. It's like he wasn't outlasting anyone, not in the slightest. I was like, this is the one category he might have. Like he might outlast someone. And I was like, did he? Did any? Because
No,
there was no outwitting.
no,
Was there any outplaying?
no.
Uh,
I
no,
don't think there was any even. I don't even think there was any playing there
the
at all.
yeah, the
Like I
lack
don't.
of play.
That's the unfortunate part. I feel like maybe he thought that he was just gonna maybe get into like a quick alliance. They were just gonna find that they were just gonna trust him to give him like a quick final two and just kind of pull him along. Which
Hey, he had
I
that
feel like
alliance.
Probably did try to do that, but he was just I feel like with other people, there's like a blind, like, okay, well, I don't have anybody else to trust in this plan, so I'm just gonna do it, you know? With him, it was just
Hmm.
he was sus of everybody at every point in time. It's just like that, that's what I said. I feel like there was like a paranoia thing going on with him because it felt very like I was literally I like feel like I was watching somebody who was like kidnapped, and like being stuck with their captives, and they're very slowly developing like Stockholm syndrome,
Oh,
yeah, okay, there's just something just off about I feel like Banu's fundamental mentality in this whole entire process to the point where even if he did know the game, like he was just stifled to play it. Kind of like with Jess. Like Jess was just so like in her head and unable to actually game. or think about game to the point where she had no strategy. And I think that's kind of what Banu was doing, but it's to a much more emotional degree. And wow, I don't know. I don't have words for it. Just
Uh,
that
I
that
think it
happened.
just
That happened. And
it's that
yeah,
not being active. It's all reactionary almost completely with his gameplay, and it was kind of the same for Jess. Though I saw Jess having an opportunity to do something but didn't want to. And again, I think that this was a setback for Purple Tribe to have gotten rid of Jess and not Banu, especially
they would
at
have
the
been back
Tribal
here with
Council.
Jess too. There's no way they would have been competitive with
They
Jess.
probably would have been,
She wasn't. She was not mentally in a place where she could have competed at all whatsoever.
but let's
Between Jelinsky, Banu, and Jess, they were all first boots between
let
all of them,
let let's think
honestly.
about it though, because let's say that Jess takes the place of Banu. Jess probably isn't going to be like, so I told everyone on the thing that all of y'all are shady and I don't trust any of you. Ha ha ha. And
Yeah,
that
but
you
challenge
are in this
wise,
alliance.
they'd
Yeah,
still be
challenge
losing the
wise,
same challenges.
it's questionable only because with Jess still there, we don't know if she's a better performer. She's probably not in the challenge, but at this point, she might make it through because they might still go on the original plan of getting rid of Kenzie.
I
Just
mean,
because,
true, but I don't think that
but
helps
the
Purple's case anymore.
I don't know that it necessarily helps Purple, but we see a person who could outlast longer randomly. Um, I mean, there's a lot to like be said. I mean, do I think anyone who's gone home so far based on a tribal council decision had much potential in the game? No. Like I said with my like Randon pick, I still think Randon could have had a good job. I think he could have gone further in the game, but I mean, we'll never know that. As far as though this boot Banu, it was only 4 episodes, and it was 4 episodes too long. It felt like. I mean, Jelinski had to go first because, well, I mean, I'm trying to figure out who made worse decisions, and I think Banu did. But is that because Banu was in the game longer, or just because he was a worse player?
I think Banu just had more time to make bad decisions than Jelinsky did. Jelinsky made the worst amount of decisions in the shortest period of time, for sure. For sure.
Right.
Looking back on it, probably who would have been the better choice to keep, obviously. But I mean, based off of his first episode, he wasn't giving anybody any sort of, indication that
Banu,
he had the ability to do so. Whereas Banu was a little
right.
more. I think Banu was
Banu
much
wasn't
more
the
the goat at
anchor
that point.
yet.
Yeah, he wasn't the anchor until
Banu
2
was
months
like,
passed, and then he decided he wanted to become the anchor. He's like, "Oh,
right.
Jelinsky's
Banu
getting screen time because of it, so I'm going to do it too."
Banu was the anchor that they didn't know about because Jelinski got wrapped up in the chains and his leg got stuck, so he went overboard first. And they were like, "Whoops! Guess we got rid of it." And it just
Just
the
kidding.
anchor
He's
just
been here the whole time.
right. And then as the anchor is going, the chain just swaps just into the ocean, and they're like, "Guess we're good." And they reel it back, and they can't get their members back, but. Bonnie finally shows that he is indeed the anchor, and he throws another hole in that ship, and they are sinking fast. And maybe they can repair it. Maybe they will. I hope that we don't see just two tribes make the merge, because at this rate, it could happen.
I mean, I'm still gonna have faith. I'm just gonna go ahead and we could just jump into winner picks here. At this moment here, because I think we kind of already went over like our boot predictions during the our analysis here.
Oh,
So
definitely.
I'd say for at least my first winner pick, I am actually still gonna stick with someone on purple. I'm still gonna stick with my girl Tiffany because she still has the best edit out of anybody on this tribe. I know more than likely it's just fan service because they know that we will love Tiffany, but I can't still deny that she is checking every green box, or sorry, every box for me. And I've had really no red flags at all for Tiffany whatsoever, other than the fact that she's on this tribe that completely sucks. And so I'm
Yep.
like, if anybody can pull it together, I'm still of the mindset. She has her idol. She's in good with both Kenzie and Q. Yeah, she got some negativity towards the situation that she has a close relationship with Q, but that could also be a good thing if they target Q and then they just decide not to get rid of Tiffany. So I'm still on board with Tiffany. It would be my most desired result at this end or at this point here, so that's why she's my personal winner pick. Is she in your top three?
Oh, definitely, definitely. Additionally, with Tiffany, I think that not only is she all have these like great green flags going for her, but in either scenario, if they go to tribal council again and there's no swap or anything, she's the one making the decision. Is it Q? Is it Kenzie? Who is she going with? And in either way, it's a positive for her. She's either getting rid of the puppet master that Banu said, or she's getting rid of her number one alliance that Banu said. Either way, it disproves something that Banu has said, and how they'll react to that idea is, I mean, is anyone's guess. Will they think that, oh, well, she's just more loyal to Q, so she got rid of Kenzie, and Kenzie was still the puppet master? Or will it be, oh, look, she got rid of Q, and maybe Kenzie decided to like puppet master that, and Kenzie's the big threat, and she's not, and then maybe she's off the hook because she got rid of her number one. So I think there's a lot of positives that could come there. The only negative that I think could happen with Tiffany is if she ends up, and so far she hasn't, and she had a really, really, really like hard time. I know she had to have had with Banu on her tribe. So if she can get through Banu for 9 days of his like wild and out, I think she can go anywhere without like blowing up on someone. She has an explosive personality. I love her to death. I know fan service, like you said, but I can see her going far. I can also see her getting a blindside mid of the way through the merge. But either way, I think she has a good potential to be a at least a top six,
If
if not the
Tiffany goes
winner.
out, it will be in you're either setting her up for a like the fan favorite fall where we're all gonna be so
Hmm.
heartbroken when she leaves, or who knows, maybe she could really pull this out. And I would like to see the positives for her because she's really honestly the only person I'm like 100% like in on. Like everybody else in my list, I feel like I keep going kind of back and forth on. Who would you say would be your next pick here, though?
My next pick here is actually kind of interesting because I think it's a I think it comes down to, Soda is my pick. So obviously I want Soda to do well. And I think it's gonna come down to either her or Tevin is going to get one of those spots going to or getting close to the final three. Whether they win or not, I'm not sure, but I do see that there's a consistent storyline going on with both of them right now, and that orange tribe is really a huge question mark. Like not in the same way that the green tribe is a question mark on we don't know their names, but it's that question mark of what is going on here? How is this going to fracture? At what point does it fracture? And where are they left? Because Soda tries to pull up this they're a five, but she knows they're a three when Tevin's actually like, we're a five and Soda's mine, but we're a three and Soda's mine. But what if we're a two? And then Liz, why don't you come along for the ride? like, um, and there could be a multitude of ways this goes down where one of the two of them maybe takes the other out. But will they find a need to do that early on? Um, they mentioned they're worried if she gets to merge that she's going to go all the way, and maybe that's foreshadowing, saying if she gets to merge and when she does get good connections and she does feel pretty safe and she goes pretty far. So I want it to be Soda, but if not Soda, I think I could see one of those two orange people going all the way, being Soda or Tevin, whoever wins that like kind of struggle, if it does come down to that.
So are
Would you
Soda
agree?
and Tevin your last two picks, or Soda slash Tevin?
Um, it's more like Soda slash Tevin as my second pick because I think that unless something disrupts the whole plan as of now, only one of them will survive that long. But I think whoever does has a really good shot because they're both very likable people.
Hmm.
And even though you want to get rid of likable people, having to put up with someone you hate is very difficult.
I mean, I get your understanding and your reasoning for it. I'm actually kind of the same mindset to some degree, but not with Soda. I've been with Tevin and Hunter. I feel like this episode they've been doing a good job of to some degree. I know you say that she's hating on her, but I don't think that the way that they're giving Hunter's displeased or the way that he's being, upset and annoyed with her, it's not coming off in a way that is like really disrespectful. He's not like sitting there like talking shit about her constantly. It's just like he's just clearly annoyed about the energy. And I kind of get that too, because I kind of get the same way around people that have high energy. I kind of can't take it in long periods anymore. So I do understand Hunter a little bit in his mindset here. And so I've always definitely had Hunter and Tevin on my radar. I am still going to probably edge out Hunter just still slightly. I know we kind of talked earlier and you have a hard time believing Hunter could even, make a deep run in the game. But, Jonathan was there on season 42. Jonathan was, Aquaman. He got fourth place. I don't necessarily think that just because he has the ability to do well and dominate in these challenges. I don't think he's been getting any of the perception that he is, this huge threat, even though he clearly is. I don't know how much everybody is really paying attention to him in the challenges because it doesn't seem like anybody's ever said anything about him, which is kind of insane to me if they haven't, because like his performances are just insane. I mean, I guess we did have the moment with Venus, who did kind of point it out a little bit that she wanted to get rid of him. Um, but I'm still kind of edging Hunter just a little bit, just because he's gotten more consistent story. Versus I feel like Tevin kind of gets these big bouts of story and then kind of disappears for a little bit, and then another big bout of story, and then it kind of disappears for a little bit. Um, I definitely agree that the Soda Hunter Heaven trio. One of those three feels like for sure they should be endgame. I just don't know if I have enough at this point to edge Soda there, unless Soda's gonna be a losing finalist. So I would say if we're going to go winner picks, I'm gonna say Hunter of the three, because I think he would be the one of the three that I think has the best arc of the three if they got to the
That's fair. That's fair. I mean, I like I said, I don't see Hunter making it to the end, but anything is possible. Banu made it 4 episodes. Uh,
end.
anything's possible.
Well, this cast hasn't proven to be the most strategic either. That's another reason why I'm like, well, if he has a chance of like kind of going under the radar for a little bit in the beginning of the merge, and then kind of floating his way towards the end, and then kind of winning, then I think Hunter could probably do that. So, um,
Right.
I don't know. There's still a lot that can happen here. There's still a lot we don't know, and a lot of storylines that still are kind of opening up here, that could lead to a winner. So we'll kind of see where that goes. But definitely, I do think someone on orange feels important for an end game.
Yeah.
Let's go ahead and go for who's your last pick for us tonight.
So I think my last pick has to go to Jem. I think that she has gotten a pretty positive edit so far, and we see her setting up this like trap. So that's either going to be like a really important moment for her game excelling, or the reason why she'll eventually crash and fall. She'll either be ousted, probably during the merge, or she'll keep up that charade. And I don't want to say this because I don't want to jinx it, but with Green having all their members still, they have the most numbers. But do I think that that means that they're all going to like go together and make it to the end? No, no way in hell. And in fact, I think that we're going to start seeing that crumble, but I do think that someone from Green is going to end up being in the final three. And I wouldn't be surprised if we saw like one orange, one purple, one green, or if we saw like one orange, two green. I mean, purple has a possibility, but they are without a doubt the least likely, in my opinion, to make it all the way there. But Gem seems to be an important factor of what's going to happen in deciding the fate of the green team right now. And she has a positive. I thought that some people were going to think she's going to fade in the background, but she's at the forefront of the green team right now, which is kind of strange to think about. And everyone seems to like her, and no one really gives me the vibe that they dislike her enough to want to vote her out immediately. And if that's kind of similar to Maria's game, where I think she has a pretty good social game going on at the moment. So I think that's like who I see going forward.
It's funny that you bring up Maria because she is my number three. I have officially replaced Charlie, and I've always kind of been leaning towards Maria. I think last week I kind of edged Charlie just because he's gotten a lot more screen time than Maria has. But Maria's screen time also feels that it is, whereas Charlie feels like he's a character, Maria feels like she's a contender. She feels like she's getting content because she is someone that we need to look at as a player, and it's very clear from this episode that she's very well ingratiated in her tribe. um I could see what you're saying with Jem as well too, but for me she's still lacking that personal content that I would need to, like I said, I don't know who Jem is as a person. I know who she kind of is as a player to some degree, but I don't know who she is as a person. Whereas Maria is very well rounded at this point. We're 4 episodes in, and I feel like it's very important within the first 4 episodes that we really get a well rounded view of whoever our winner is. And typically we do. There's generally, an outlier here or there, but I feel like for the most part, even like Natalie White in Samoa got her arc within 4 episodes, so as long as it's not an Erica situation, which I don't think it will be, I think we will know who our winner is by now. Um, Regardless if we know that they are on the course to becoming a winner. But she's ever since that Denise comment where she said that her and Charlie were Denise and Malcolm and she was the Denise. I can't help but not look at that like, okay, Maria is in the running for this for real. So
Yeah,
I will gladly switch the spot with Jem if next episode Jem gives us something here. I'm just a little worried that Jem might be going next, so I don't know how this whole idol situation is going to work out for her, especially like one of the big things that stands out to me still is the opening scene that we had with him and Maria having their little conversation. I'm just wondering if she works with the men and knocks out Jem or Mariah just because she just can't trust the girls because they had the idol from her. So I don't know. Maria still feels like the focal point for me on Green, so that's why she is my final winner pick for here. So yeah.
I I I think Maria is a great choice for that. I think the only thing that leads me slightly away from Maria, because she is high up there, I just don't know. I think there's obviously like the preferential I want soda there, but I also think like someone from Orange is going to make it there regardless. More than likely, I would say that like someone from Orange has to make the top three almost.
I would
And
agree with that
if
for
I would think it's more likely that someone from if any tribe doesn't have someone there, it's more likely that either purple or green doesn't have it than orange. But as far as the Malcolm Denise play goes, Malcolm gets voted out right before the final tribal council in his season. And if we're gonna compare it like to that with Maria, you could see a time where Maria gets pretty far and she could win like Denise does and is basically like gets all the jury votes. But in this case, I'm not sure if Maria distrusts Jem um and Char. I mean, she's got a great thing with Charlie. I don't think she distrusts Jem enough or any of the women actually, to the point where I think she's more likely to go up against him and or Ben and vote one of them out first, which is what kind of gives me the idea that Jem is going to have the idol. It's going to be hidden from them. They're not going to know. I mean, this is all speculation, obviously. And if she plays it that way, she could go all the way there. Maybe Maria actually goes with her, and then Jem reveals at the end, and she has that kind of like Marianne moment where she's like, "Actually, none of you knew that I was good the whole time because here you go, idol moment." And wouldn't that be fun to watch someone come back once more with a little piece of knowledge that no one knew, and she held it for so long? I mean, it's not necessarily going to happen, but it would be a cool way to end the season again. Because I
There's
think that
definitely a
that would
lot
be a
of
lot of
things.
respect.
There's definitely a lot of things being set up here. I feel like that kind of will lead us in a lot of different directions. I think the runtime that they had here, the fact that they've had this longer runtime, has really allowed them to kind of make a lot more people feel like potential winners than they normally have. Like I feel like even compared to last season, I feel like there's a lot more people here uh, that it can kind of go in a lot of different ways. Like I'm not seriously saying that this cast is necessarily better players, but I feel like the editing is a lot more even this time around to some
Yeah.
degree. In that um, there's a lot of mystery still that we still need to uncover here. um,
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of editing questions that are going on at this point, and so it's going to be hard to see the whole picture until we get the finale.
even if we get to like a merge, I feel like things might be able to come a little bit more clear. But we need to see how these people are going to kind of interact with each other. It's one thing to see how they're interacting with their own tribes, but I don't know how these groups are going to interact within each other. So that
Right.
I think will be the first few episodes there. I think will be very telling as far as the direction of where things will really head in the season. Um, but whatever happens, at least at this point, I'm very excited to kind of see where things go here. Um, and I would keep going here, Jack, but we've almost been talking for almost 2 hours here.
Yeah, you got some editing to do
Yeah, yeah.
there.
So I think maybe we'll round it out here though. Jack, I do want to give you one last final thought here for the night. Being our guest here, I'll give you the final words. What are your final takeaways as we kind of head into what will probably be one of our last episodes before this individual game truly begins?
I think one of the first things that needs to be said is that at this point we have now the opportunity to really see a different side of the game. Now that Purple is down to 3 members and their 3 most competent members, it is possible they don't go back to tribal council for once, which might shed more light into what's going on with Orange and Green. And that's not only exciting, but it also keeps things fresh and fun because we've had this disaster tribe going, which is great. But at some point, the disaster has to stop, or else everyone's just going to be gone. And I think that if there was a moment that the disaster might stop, it is when Banu has officially gone and the 3 least competent members on their team are now all gone. So that's an exciting moment. Again, this season has been a lot less strategy, a lot more mess, but we are starting to see those hints of strategy here or there. The Tevin going around and like making sure people are aware of Soda's gameplay. We have Gem hiding a fake the wear advantage, and could that lead to other people's evictions? So we're seeing some really good pockets of strategy starting to be sprinkled onto us now that the focus might not be so focused on uh, Purple alone. And I think the most important thing that has to be said at the end of this episode is for Banu, sprinkle, sprinkle, girl. Bye bye.
If you are suffering from mental health issues, please contact.
Oh my god, that's so fucked. No,
Please.
in all seriousness, on that last note though, um, I think this goes back to like last seasons where there were multiple people who gave up. Really think if you could do something like this, if you're willing to really play the game, you might love the game and you might be a so-called like super fan of the show, but I think it's kind of a letdown for a lot of people to see one of the 18 slots given to someone who's not going to really play the game, who's just going to kind of sit there. And maybe there's more to his story that we didn't see edited, but even if there was, based on all the emotional outbursts, there was a lack of control there that eventually was going to snuff his torch for him. And tonight, without even a vote to send him home because we all just knew it was happening, I think that was the perfect like ending to this saga that feels almost like a season long because of all the outbursts and craziness that has happened. But I mean, it's great. It's entertaining. One of the reasons I love Survivor is you never really know what's going to happen, and this really shows you that you never really know what's going to happen.
I love the fact that I mean the fact that we're able to even just sit here and have conversations about where things can go and have this many possibilities. That's just exciting in itself. And oop, sorry, sorry, call. That's just exciting in itself. That's the reason why I personally keep coming back here because I love the speculation. I love the strategy. I love just talking about these people. And Banu, as much as I've been talking poop about you tonight here, if you are somehow listening at some point, it's entirely out of love. We've appreciated every moment that you've gone here. It's been a crazy ride for these first four episodes. But I'm very excited to see the real strategy of the game start to come into play here, and I think that's where we're kind of at moving forward here. Is this is seems like it's like the cusp of where like that craziness of the preseason and like the seriousness of the game really starts to set in at this point. So I'm very excited to kind of run this through with you, Jack, here. It's been a fun night here. We definitely had a lot to talk about, and I'm very excited to see if any of our predictions come to light here. If anybody out there is listening, please let me know your thoughts. Let me know if you're enjoying the season. Do you agree with our winner picks and any of our boot predictions? Spill some tea in the comments. And on behalf of QuackrrJack, I'm Renegade, and I will see y'all next time. Bye.
Bye.